How are you guys? Thank you guys all for being here. Somebody had asked as we were gearing up for this if we were going to do this inside or outside, and I thought it would be a little more humorous if I told them outside. However, I don't think that anyone would have showed up. So thank you all for braving the cold to be inside at this very important event. Before we get started, my name is Tracy Rolls, and I have the honor of being the police chief here in Bartlesville. Our police department was approached about putting this type of event on about a year ago. And over time, we have finally gotten to where we are tonight. And it was not without hard work and dedication from a lot of people to put this event together. From the police department, Sergeant Andrew Ward, who is right here, he and a member of our staff, Chastity Bryant, who is very new to our staff, got the dubious task of putting this event together. So I would like to personally thank them for their hard work and effort to put this event together. Thank you. Also, we feel like we have comprised an expert panel that will help all of us understand more about the dangers of fentanyl as we move forward trying to protect our communities from its impact. So I'd like to thank the panel for taking their time to be here in Bartlesville to talk about this very important thing that faces us all. And lastly, I would like to thank each and every one of you who have taken the time to be here. It does not surprise me that this many people are in the room because that's what we do in Bartlesville. We care about our community. We care about each other, and we want to know what we can all do to help keep our people here in our community and those who visit here safe. So thank you all for being here and taking of your time. With that being said, I will turn this over to Jim Waring. He will run the show now, and I know for those of you who know Jim Waring, that is a very scary thought, but we're going to go ahead and let him do it, and we appreciate Jim being here as well. So Jim Waring.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Waring. I work for Grand Mental Health. I'm the Law Enforcement Engagement Director. And people are like, what is that? Well, I spent 25 years as a Bartlesville police officer. I'm very proud of my career as a police officer here. And then I went into work in the mental health and substance abuse field. And so with Grand, I handle all the law enforcement, the crisis issues, and some of the substance abuse issues. So I'm very honored to be asked to try to get this thing going tonight. On this forum, we have looking at the list, we have some of who I think are the foremost experts in dealing with this problem that we're having all over the state. Tonight, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce each one of these individuals. I'm going to tell a little bit about their bio, what they're doing, and then they're going to tell you on with their discipline how they're dealing with the epidemic of fentanyl. And then what we're going to do after we're done with each one of the individuals, when we're all done and wrapping up, then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. So we're going to save our questions till the very end, and hopefully we can shed some better light. So, you know, we start this out with fentanyl. What is it, and how do we stop it? And that's going to be a real daunting thing in and of itself. And you know, fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. Pharmaceutical fentanyl was developed as a form of pain management to cancer patients, applied in a patch on the skin. Due to its powerful opioid properties, fentanyl is also diverted for drug abuse. So, Amber.
Amber Sanders. My son was Zachary Barnes, who lost his life on January 23rd, 2021 to the ongoing fentanyl crisis in our community. Zach was one of 4 who was affected by fentanyl on this day. To my knowledge, he was the only one who passed. He was just 18 years old and had so much life to live. Zach was the oldest of 7 and was fond of each one of his siblings. He loved skateboarding, friends, and family. Zach worked a full-time job at a local gas station and was a normal 18-year-old boy. This has impacted our lives on so many levels, it is difficult for me to put into words. He was my world, he was my baby. I'm unsure if any of you have lost a child, and if you have, my sincere condolences to you. God gives you these children to love, but we're never known how to live without them. Life is definitely different since we've lost him. It was all over an uneducated decision, a mistake, something that can never be undone. Zach has 6 younger siblings and parents who will never quite be the same. We as parents knew nothing about fentanyl. Education is a must, and I just want to tell you guys, as a parent, you have to educate your kids. You have to. I was a parent that thought it could never happen to me. I knew nothing about drugs. It wasn't something that I even thought my kids could be into until he's no longer here. And if I would have just known a little bit, maybe I could have changed his life. So for me to you, just educate your kids. Anyone you come across, tell a story. And that's it. Okay.
You know, when we talk about, expert panel, and thank you so much for Amber for coming and speaking, but, it's one of those things that everybody thinks it can't happen to me. And, so when we have the best experts here to talk about this, they're gonna relay stories of, yes, it can and it is happening. It's happening all over Oklahoma. So hopefully we can shed some light and maybe come up with some answers. Our next panelist is going to be Christopher Wells. He's with the Bartlesville Ambulance Service. He's a registered NRP? Paramedic. He's a paramedic. He is a nationally registered paramedic and who has been involved in the EMS field for 17 years. Employed with the Bartlesville Ambulance Service for the last 15 years. He currently serves as the Thursday and Friday shift supervisor and narcotics officer at the Bartlesville Ambulance Service. Chris has also worked as a flight paramedic and volunteered his time as a tactical paramedic for the Bartlesville Police Department, SOT team, and Washington County Sheriff's Office SWAT teams for several years. I've worked with Chris. He's one of the finest professionals, and I think most of the officers and firemen will say, and so glad to introduce him and let him speak.
Good evening. So first of all, what does fentanyl do to the body? Like they said, it's 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. It can cause dizziness, confusion. Ooh, actually, sorry, we're gonna watch a little video. This was one of the officers, I believe he's in another department now, that was booking evidence. Is that correct? That was fentanyl, and you can actually see how fast, just by the exposure of it, how fast it affected him.
The power of even the smallest touch of fentanyl shown in this video. Watch as a Bartlesville police officer wearing protective gloves is packing up drug evidence believed to be laced with fentanyl when he slowly starts to collapse.
Becoming ill, lightheaded, and actually basically passed out or fell.
Seconds later, a rush of officers coming to the rescue.
I don't know what would have happened had they not acted so quickly.
Sergeant Jim Warren says officers quickly gave him Narcan, which is believed to have saved his life.
Police say this is the first time they've had to deal with something like this, where they had to give one of their own officers Narcan.
We're really fortunate that one, we had this available to us, and two, their officers really adhered to training and paid attention to the training.
Another layer to the opioid epidemic and an eye-opening to what these men and women behind the badge have to deal with.
Even though the officer may not be physically dealing with an individual, all the evidence and things that we handle on a day-to-day basis, you know, that can harm you too.
So you can see how fast it affected Officer Morgan. So signs that we look for, we're looking for dizziness, confusion, body weakness, sleepiness, hypoventilation, so it kind of decreases your respiratory drive. We also look at pupils that will become pinpoint. That's kind of one of our signs we look for. Kind of quick to tell if they're unresponsive and they got pinpoint pupils. We can kind of direct towards taking opiates. Also, it decreases the heart rate, blood pressure, blue-colored lips and fingernail beds. That's just going to be due to the lack of oxygen because they're not breathing adequately. And then finally, being unresponsive or unconscious and coma. So Narcan, or naloxone, it is a opiate antagonist. So basically it blocks the opiate receptors. The good thing is with Narcan that it only blocks the opiate receptors. So any other medications that they may take, we can pinpoint that it was an opiate and not like a benzo or antidepressant or something like that. Different forms that we can give it. With EMS, we carry it in a vial so we can give it through the IV. With that, we can also draw it up and insert it through the nose, even eye or even muscle. I know the police officers and the fire, and I believe they also do give this to the public, the Narcan little nasal spray, which I've got right here. So the packets come, they got quick instructions, basically almost like Afrin or something. You just put in their nose, squirt it, and then wait. I mean, generally it'll happen within, you guys have seen as well, within a short period of time, 10, 15 seconds. The only caveat to that is if they're not breathing, it's not going to do anything. So even rescue breaths or something to kind of help push that Narcan into their respiratory system. Just kind of how it works, just open up the package and, like I said, just put it in their nose, and typically we like to push one side and plug the one there and then squirt it in there. Problem is with the Narcan, the half-life, so the Narcan's only lasting about 30 to 90 minutes. With the fentanyl, it lasts so much longer, so a lot of times it's best for them to go get continued care and be evaluated in the emergency room for, you know, extended period of time. Once that Narcan wears off, the symptoms are going to come right back. Pupils are going to be pinpointed, their respirations are going to decrease, heart rate, so forth and so on. So it's always best, we want to get it done fast, and then we also want to take them to the ER so they can get evaluated for longer. Just quick numbers as far as us with the Bartlesville ambulance that the amount of Narcan that we've administered, and you can kind of see going back to 2000. And when I initially got asked to do this, I really only went until January 1 to October 1. October was our biggest year, our biggest amount of administration this year. You can see at the very top there, averaging, 4, 3, 7, 8, 6 times a month. We doubled that in September, and we doubled that in October. So 14 in September and 16 administrators in October. Also kind of broke down the age difference between male and female, so you can see that really any age, I mean, not necessarily that it's intentional, but accidental. Even people up to the age of 65, we've had pediatrics that got a hold of it in their homes, as well as just the elderly.
You know, I was just thinking, I became a full-time police officer. I started in 1987, and then went to the military, and then Kansas Department of Corrections 1991, and then Bartlesville 1995. We never even thought about, Narcan was not even thought of, never heard of, never really heard the word fentanyl. And so now it's normal, and that's really kind of scary to me, because I get, you know, the Narcan sheets that when officers use Narcan, they'll report to me, and when we get to the state, try to get a replacement on the Narcan. But it's daily. It's daily that these officers and paramedics and firefighters are administering this. And it's commonplace, it's everywhere. It's in the schools, it's in the library. And it's just really hard for me to get used to. Our next panelist is Sergeant Andrew Ward of the Bartlesville Police Department. Sergeant Ward's career in criminal justice started by working for the K County Detention Center as a detention officer in 2010. In February 2011, he was hired by the Blackwell Police Department and received his CLEAT certification. In February 2012, he was hired by the Bartlesville Police Department. Sergeant Ward has his associate's degree in criminal justice administration from Northern Oklahoma College. In 2020, he obtained an advanced law enforcement certificate through the Council of Law Enforcement Education and Training. Sergeant Ward is a defensive tactics instructor and a law enforcement driver training instructor. Sergeant Ward has over 1,800 hours of logged mandatory training through the Council on Law Enforcement Education and Training. While working at the Bartlesville Police Department, Sergeant Ward was a canine handler for 9 years and currently supervises the Criminal Investigation Division at the Bartlesville Police Department and also the Community Impact Team. Sergeant Ward has been involved in numerous drug and murder investigations over his career.
I want to start out by the mission of the Bartlesville Police Department. Our mission is to enhance the quality of life in our community by working cooperatively with the public and with the framework of the United States Constitution to enforce laws, preserve peace, reduce fear, and provide a safe environment for all of our citizens. So I'm going to talk about the local municipal statistics. Basically, our overdose cases, how many Narcan deployments we've used at the Bartlesville Police Department. So in 2021, we had 12 confirmed overdose cases, and that drastically jumps to 41 in 2022. From January 2021 to 2022, 53 confirmed out of 68 drug cases on that. Next one, the Bartlesville Police Department Narcan deployments. We increased 20% from 2019. From 2020 to 2021, we increased 25%. And from 2021 to 2022, we increased 55% on Narcan deployments. As you can see the numbers down there. 22, we ran the numbers, I believe, Chastity, if I'm wrong, it was it this week that we ran the numbers? So this week, we've had 48 Narcan deployments. That's just by the police department only. We're usually the first ones that get there, then we're able to administer it, and then EMS or fire gets there. So it's a pretty drastic number for the police department to be deploying 48 Narcans. So how should you handle fentanyl? If you think you found fentanyl, you can call the emergency 911, or our number is 918-338-4001. Just step away from the substance. If the substance gets on you, remain calm, wash the area of your skin. If you're able to use the 2-person rule. How does the Bartlesville Police Department handle fentanyl? We wear protective equipment, including but not limited to gloves, N95 mask, eyewear. We put the illicit substance in a proper container for travel to the Bartlesville Police Department property room. There will be heat sealed in a bag before it's sent for testing to the OSBI lab. Number 3, we do use the 2-person rule of the Bartlesville Police Department. One person is packing the illicit substance for testing. The other is basically just right outside the room, and we have Narcan ready to go. This is what we're able to confirm, and I say able to confirm is because a lot of time when we have a death that's suspected to be an overdose, sometimes it takes anywhere from, I want to say, 4 to 6 months to get the autopsy report back to confirm that that's what the cause of the death would be. So 2021, you can see we had 3 confirmed deaths. So far, confirmed in 2022 is 5, and unfortunately, I expect that number to climb by a few. We're just waiting on some results. So how do we stop this epidemic? At the Bartlesville Police Department, our priority is the safety of our community and those who live in it. We train our officers year-round on how to handle drug investigations. This includes online and in-person classes. When there is an investigation, our detectives work tirelessly with the mental health and patrol officers. Our team works diligently trying to get individuals who are stuck in addiction some help and education without judgment. Our goal is not only to educate our department, but the public as well. We will continue to hold City Hall meetings each month to keep the public informed. The officers will make appearances in schools to educate our youth generation on what the drugs can do if you become addicted. Here at the police department, we believe that education is the key to helping the drug crisis, not only in our city, but Oklahoma. Turn it over to Mr.
Thank you, Sergeant Ward. Our next panelist is Bo Radke. He's the chief agent of the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. Radke began his law enforcement career in the Oklahoma Able Commission in 2006 before joining the Bureau of Narcotics in 2012. During his career at OBN, he has served within enforcement human trafficking divisions. In January of 2018, he was promoted to the agent in charge of the Rural Division of the unit until his promotion to chief agent in October 2021. He currently oversees the statewide drug diversion division, the Tulsa and McAllister enforcement officers, the prescription monitoring program, and the registration division. Throughout his career, he has presented numerous conferences and groups as well as educational videos. He is also a founding panel member for the Tulsa Area E-Prescribing Task Force, which spearheaded recent legislative changes to help combat the growing prescription forgery crimes occurring in the state. He is the administrator for the Bureau's Medicine Take Back program, which collects unused and discarded medication from the public via the drug take back kiosks and events around the state, and has helped to safely dispose in excess of 180,000 pounds of medication. He currently serves on the Oklahoma Commission on Opioid Abuse, the Opioid Overdose Fatality Review Board, the JAG State Strategic Planning Committee, as the Secretary Board for the Oklahoma Law Enforcement Retirement System, and is president of the Oklahoma chapter of the National Association of Drug Diversion Investigators.
Good evening. I've got quite a few slides here, and can you hear me okay? This thing does not get any higher. Can you get in the back? Can you guys hear me okay? All right. I'm going to try to breeze through these. I apologize for my voice. My kids have brought home something from daycare. Maybe. Yeah, it's not the light. My light's not on anymore. One backwards. It's flashing, dude. It's still on. All right. This is our OBN mission, committed to honor, integrity, and excellence. The Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics will serve the citizens of Oklahoma in the quest for a drug-free state. We've had that mission statement for quite some time. We strive to meet that every day. We struggle to meet that, and we'll see that. We've seen that already with some of the statistics, and I'll show you some as well that will say it's an ongoing battle. This is our this slide, this PowerPoint for me is our emerging fentanyl threat in Oklahoma. That's primarily what we'll stick to here. I've got a few interesting points that it's interesting to see some of the numbers from Bartlesville as far as where they're at versus what we're seeing statewide. I'm not going to go through all these in the interest of time here, but a couple of these, the drug overdose deaths far exceed our vehicular and firearm fatalities. One of the top 10 leading causes of death in the state of Oklahoma is our drug overdoses. That's as a whole, that's not just fentanyl, that's as a whole. I really want to point out here, our epidemic with our opioid epidemic began with overprescribing of prescription opioids. That is why we're here where we're at. Yes, we did have heroin before our opioid or our overprescribing began, but to the extent where we're at today, a lot of it was primarily because of our prescribing of opioids or our overprescribing of opioids, and that does not solely rest on our prescribers in the state. That rests on the backs of our pharmaceutical manufacturers, that rests on the backs of our distributors, and so forth. So I don't want to come in here and blame doctors and the rest of our prescribers, because it is not simply or solely their fault. Go to the next page here. We talked a little bit about fentanyl earlier. This is what our pharmaceutical grade fentanyl looks like. This is not our problem right now. I've got some stats that will show some of this stuff, but this is the stuff that is legal, or is primarily legal unless it's converted, but this is not our problem in Oklahoma right now. I know a lot of you guys have probably all seen this. One point I brought up today, I thought about this when I spoke to Ms. Skelly earlier today. So look at fentanyl on the right hand, a picture on the right hand side here, the vial on the far right hand side is fentanyl. Then you look at oxycodone, heroin, and tramadol, and we heard earlier fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine. Morphines is our agreed upon equivalency rate for pain relief in the medical community. Fentanyl is 100 times more potent than that. I try to figure out what's going to get across to our citizens out there when we try to explain how potent fentanyl is. What I came up with today is something that might strike a chord with everybody more so than drugs. So think about it in the terms of alcohol. We could all probably, if we wanted to, drink one drink and be just fine. What about if we drank 100 drinks at one time? Would any of us ever drink 100 drinks at one time? Exactly. That's what's happening with fentanyl right now. So one pill is actually probably, in a lot of instances, more than 100 times, because there's no real idea on what's in that one pill, how much is in that one pill. But to the least extent, that is what you could get in one pill, fentanyl. This is just our routes of travel. Honestly, in Oklahoma, most of our fentanyl right now is coming from Mexico. The source chemicals might be coming from overseas, but most of our supply of fentanyl is coming across the southwest border. Emerging threats, M30 pills, that is common, that's very common in Oklahoma right now. Although we do see different types of pills pressed. They'll press the pills in about anything. We see bulk fentanyl coming into Oklahoma. A lot of our interdiction units, our patrol units out there are the ones that are seizing our bulk fentanyl or our powder fentanyl. A lot of our investigations, especially our overdose investigations, we're finding our pill or tablet form or pill form of fentanyl. Look at the bottom there. This is what's really concerning here. Fentanyl included in other drugs. Heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine. I don't have marijuana on there. They're cutting fentanyl into everything. They're putting fentanyl in every other type of drug out there. So when you think, from a substance user standpoint, you think you're getting methamphetamine, you could be getting methamphetamine, but also fentanyl. And that's not what they're expecting there. So that's also driving calls for some of our overdoses. They might not be intentionally taking fentanyl. They're taking another drug that they might have a tolerance to, and they just so happen to get fentanyl in there because it was cut into that other drug. This is what we're seeing in Oklahoma right now. Our raw powder fentanyl, what I told you about, that's what we'll seize on the interstates a lot of times. Obviously the pills on the right-hand side are finished product. Most of our finished product in the state is pill form right now. We seize those on the highways too, but the finished product on the right-hand side, that's what we're finding in our overdose scenes. That's what we're finding in our search warrants. When we're doing undercover purchases of drugs, that's what we're getting to on those purchases is the pill form. Public safety indicator, I won't mention too much on the right-hand side, that's OSBI labs middles, but on the left-hand side, so we just heard from Bartlesville PD about some of their numbers. This is OBN numbers on the left-hand side. This is just the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. And I mentioned this earlier in this slide about the pharmaceutical grade fentanyl. 2018, 2019, those numbers are actually, you can't round up from zero, but 2019 is rounded up to 0.5. The only seizures that we saw of fentanyl in 2018, 2019 as the Bureau of Narcotics was pharmaceutical grade fentanyl. In most cases, it was some investigation on a diverted drug, a diverted patch, a sucker, a fentanyl sucker or something like that. It was diverted from somebody that legally had it, and it was either stolen or something like that. 2020, we started seeing a little bit of the fentanyl. Then we see 2021, and then 2022 as of, I believe this was 2 weeks ago, that's when this data was pulled. And those are pounds. So we're at 106, almost 107 pounds as of October of 2022. So you see that percent increase there. That is just absolutely astronomical. We're not talking about 10%, 20%, even 100% increase. You know, we're over 400%. So this is what I wanted to get to. Actually, there's another slide right after this too that is interesting what Bartlesville is seeing compared to what we're seeing as a state. Overdoses on the left, overdose deaths. This is just fentanyl. 299 in 2021. Don't pay attention to 2022 yet. The data is very, very light at this point. We don't get data until the medical examiner's office reports that data to us. And typically we don't see finalized data from them until mid-year of the year after. So our 2022 data we probably won't be able to finalize until about June or July of 2023. We see our indicators there from 2020 to 2021 on where we are with our fentanyl overdose deaths. And I'll add to this. You look at the right-hand side there. It's kind of ironic that as our overdoses go up, we see our treatment admissions go down. So that says a lot about where our funding is. I don't want to get too far into it because some of these other gentlemen will talk about it. We need funding across the board. It's not just law enforcement. We need funding for treatment and things like that. Okay. This is our fatal drug overdose by. This is all drugs, fatal overdoses by year. So again, 2022 is very, very immature with its data, with its numbers. 2020 and 2021, roughly the same. We did see a slight decrease in 2021. If anything, that is because of our decrease in our pharmaceutical drug overdoses and our methamphetamine overdoses, which are down slightly. That is not any semblance of fentanyl overdoses. This chart right here is a little bit deceiving. Pharmaceutical drug and illicit drug overdoses, fatal drug overdoses. This shows the presence of a drug in somebody's system. So it is very typical for us to see an illicit drug and a pharmaceutical drug in the same person that overdosed. So while the overdose, the number of people that overdose is not counted twice, it could be in this data because they have 2 more drugs in their system. But it just goes to show you what we're seeing. We're seeing almost